Hi, I'm Caesar Bryan, Portfolio Manager of the Gabelli Gold Fund since its inception in 1994. I'm excited to introduce my colleague and Associate Portfolio Manager of the Gabelli Gold Fund, Chris Mancini, who is about to host a live interview with Ron Hochstein, the President and CEO of Lundin Gold. I am looking forward to an informative discussion about Mr. Hochstein's career, the story of Lundin's Fruta del Norte mine in Ecuador, including Ron's plans for the company's future, and the gold market in general. Lundin is a top holding of the Gabelli Gold Fund and has been one of the fund's best performing stocks. The Gabelli Gold Fund's initial purchase of shares in Lundin Gold occurred in October 2020, almost a year after the start of operations at the Fruta del Norte mine. Since then, Lundin Gold's share price has risen by about 5.5 times, compared with a gain of about 70% for the gold price and about 35% for the gold miners index. That represents a massive outperformance. On behalf of our clients, we thank Mr. Hochstein and his team for generating such tremendous returns. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll now hand over to Chris.
Thanks so much for joining today. So very excited to have, like Caesar said, Ron Hochstein here. He's the CEO of Lundin Gold. Lundin, again, it's a $12.5 billion market cap company. Fantastic performer, has been like the poster child for what gold stocks should do, like for a while. So again, from like 2020 to 2025, Lundin Gold was the savior of the gold mining industry. The stock went from 10 to 70, and that's when the GDXJ was up only 20% during the same period. So really fantastic performance, really great. The company has its headquarters in Vancouver, but Ron's in the Quito office, and it's an Ecuadorian company, owns the Fruta del Norte mine, one of the best gold mines in the world, which is in southern Ecuador. And so just we'll kick it off to Ron. Thanks a lot again for being here, Ron. And if you could just tell us, so your story a little bit, your background, where you were born, where you grew up, where you went to college, what your major was, first career path, and how you got involved with the Lundin family, who's the controlling shareholder really of Lundin Gold.
Well, Chris, first of all, thank you very much for having me, and it's very humbling what you were saying, and yeah, it's been an amazing ride. I grew up as a farm boy in southern Alberta. Didn't quite know. Unfortunately, I had asthma and hay fever, so the farming wasn't going to be part of my career path. So I followed one of my uncles into engineering, went to University of Alberta, and a professor there said, "We think you should look at mineral processing or mining industry versus petroleum." And I made that switch, and he was a great mentor. And then worked for Noranda for 13 years. And started in the mines and ended up in Toronto. I got my MBA in the process. Ended up in Toronto in the projects group. So I was looking at acquisitions and reviewing operations and all that. So there was a great experience. And then I left to join Simons, engineering consulting firm. And that's when I met Adolf Lundin and Lucas Lundin. And I started working as a consultant. So it's actually this month. I met them, and I started on July 7th, yesterday, in 1995. So we're coming up on 30 years of working with or for the family, the Lundin family.
Right.
I had 3 clients when I was at Simons for 3.5 years. Tech was my number 1 client, Lucas Lundin and Robert Friedland. So I was kept pretty busy with those 3. And then I started working. Lucas asked me to actually join the company. I started in the uranium space, and I was in the uranium. We started with IUC and then Denison for 14 years. And then we had a company we'd set up called Fortress Minerals. We had looked at staking putting some ground into Fortress when uranium was in the tank, and we knew Mongolia really well. This Niswonoye Tolgoi had been discovered. Unfortunately, things didn't go as well as planned, so we just rolled that shell up, and it was sitting there for 3 years, and we looked at a couple things. And then May 2014, Lucas had lunch with Kinross, CEO, and corp dev, and phoned me after and said, "What do you know about Fruta del Norte?" I said, "Well, amazing deposit, but it's in Ecuador. I'll put together a team and look at it." And that was May 2014. We acquired it closed the deal in December 2014. We acquired it for 240 million US, and then it was a very aggressive track to get the feasibility study done. And then with the Lundins, there was no holding back, even though the gold market was very challenging, to put $1 billion of financing in place and straight through construction. First gold in November 2019.
Yeah.
So from 4 years from start of feasibility to first gold.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, we're in the 5 years of operation, coming up on 6 years in operation now, and coming up on our producing close to 3 million ounces.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, right? So Fruta del Norte, so Kinross owned it, and like you say, it was a great deposit. But lots of us in the sector at the time, I remember, thought that, okay, yeah, you know, that mine didn't get the permit. It's in Ecuador. Ecuador doesn't want to build mines. You know, this deposit will never get a permit, and so just kind of wrote it off. I mean, what did you guys see as the opportunity there, to potentially work with the government, the community? Was it more important, the community relations, the government, the kind of federal government relations, the state? But what did you like? What did you see that others didn't see at the time in terms of the opportunity to really harvest this, you know, no pun intended, harvest this fruit,
Yeah, that's, by that time I had been working with the Lundins for a number of years, but I really saw what is one of the things that set Lucas apart, and now sets Jack and Adam apart, because I see very much they have very similar qualities. We came down to Ecuador in June, July, and because Lucas said, "I'm not going to sign the agreement until I met with members of the government." So with Kinross, we came down here to Quito, and we met with the Minister of Mines, and then we met with mining was a strategic sector, so we met with the senior minister's strategic sectors. We never met with Correa or Glass or any of the very senior politicians.
Okay.
And Lucas effectively said, "Look, I want to invest the family money. Do you support mining?" And we were flying back to Vancouver from here, and I said, "So what?" And then we went to site as well, saw the project, because we were boots on the ground always. And Lucas said, "Yeah, we're going for it." And it was those two meetings, that gut instinct that he's got the government support.
Right.
We saw what Kinross had done. We saw site. We didn't actually get to the communities until when we actually closed the deal. But yeah, it was just that gut feeling that, yeah, he could work with this government, and now was the right time. And that's what,
That's cool.
You look at what, Argentina with Alumbrera, Tengue Fungarumi in the Congo. You can look at a number of things where the family had that instinctive ability to know when's the right time.
Right. And even just so the ability for them to sit down face to face, and having that heft of the family knowing that, I guess, they're going to do the right thing, they're going to build the mine well, and that they'll be able to ultimately build the mine. And just sitting down one-on-one and looking him in the eyes, I guess he was able to kind of get that sense that there was a good chance that they would ultimately let it go. That's awesome.
Well, and I think too, one of the things, sorry, Chris, one of the things Lucas said in that meeting, which Kinross were kind of like backed up, where Lucas said, "This is Ecuador's gold. This is your gold, but it's worth nothing right now. And what we want to do is come down and create wealth for you, and also for our shareholders. But we want to work together." And I think that approach, unfortunately, in the industry, is not always heard. And I think that was one of the key things that really got everyone feeling quite comfortable.
Right. So did you come up with that arrangement in terms of the federal, the tax regime? Was that before or after you? So that was before you started developing the mine, right? Can you talk a little bit about how you were able to structure the tax deal such that the government felt that, like they said, like you said, they were actually getting the gold, and also maybe how the community benefited in that, because it was from my recollection, it was a one-off kind of structured kind of tax and profit sharing deal, and it seems to really work well.
Well, it's actually, we came in again at the right time. The President Correa had actually engaged Wood Mackenzie to help them because oil had started to tumble a little bit. So in Ecuador, when oil, that was the other thing, oil prices were very high when Kinross was trying to work. So it wasn't like the government really needed that additional source of revenue.
Right.
So he knew that he needed to think of something else. So he actually engaged McKinsey, and McKinsey had started doing their work. And I got to give the government credit here, because what they did do is, typically, this is something I'd never seen before, is he said, we want you to go meet with McKinsey and help them to make sure that the tax structure going forward is going to be something that works.
Right.
And so we actually sat down with McKinsey several times in New York and here in Quito. So it wasn't as much a one-off, like our agreement, and I particularly, Chris, I don't like one-offs, because I think what mining companies need to do is be able to work within the regime that they have. I don't like tax holidays.
Okay.
You need to start paying taxes, because you need to start showing, again, that's how Ecuador starts to earn wealth from that gold.
Right.
And so it was essentially the system that was in place at the time. And again, it was a little bit of timing, because Correa had brought, the government at the time had brought McKinsey in to help them to better structure the Ecuadorian tax system.
Okay.
So it's more competitive with Peru, Chile, Colombia, our neighbors here in Latin America.
Okay, cool. So what is it again? Can you remind me, and everybody, like what the breakdown is in terms of how much the federal government gets, and then there's some that goes to the state and the community and that kind of thing?
Yeah, the way it works, you'll start at the very top. So there's a 5% NSR
Right.
royalty, and under the Constitution, that royalty is to be shared with the local communities that where the mine is located.
Right.
Then the next step is there's profit sharing, which is all companies in Ecuador pay the profit sharing, but in the strategic sectors, which is oil and mining, the profit 12% goes to the government, 3% to the employees.
Right.
And both of those are deductible against income tax. Then you have a 22% tax rate, which was the tax rate at the time we signed the agreements. Right now, the corporate tax rate in Ecuador is 25, but that was part of us signing the agreements. Essentially, we froze the what was it, the fiscal regime at the time was frozen, because that's where we're making our investment.
Right.
So and yeah, that's roughly about it. So overall, we pay about, well, sorry, and then there's one other component, Chris, which is, I think, very important. It's called the sovereign adjustment.
Okay.
And what we do is the government and us keep track of our discounted cash flows. And so obviously we were very negative with the investment. The government's been receiving cash flows through advanced royalties and other things from start.
Okay.
But if that ever goes where we're getting more than 50% of the benefit, it's adjusted to 50-50.
Okay, got it. Okay, interesting. Okay, interesting. Right. So I guess the big picture here is that that's a very interesting and important point. I mean, and that just to show that the government and the communities are getting so much of what's being produced from this mine, but we're also getting we've also gotten a whatever 700% return in the past 5 years. So it can work for both all stakeholders, for the shareholders and the government and the community. Maybe if you can talk for a sec about the community. So a certain percentage of that NSR, which is a big number off of 500,000 ounces. So that's just 5% of the revenue essentially that's produced by the mine, which is 500,000. So that's, I won't try to do the math right now off the top of my head, but that's a big number. And then right? And right, what is that? So that's like
It
1.5
was
billion. So it's like $50 million a year.
yeah, it was the royalties last year were close to 60 million that we paid.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a lot of money right off the bat. But if you can kind of talk a sec about like how you do interact with the community and maybe even before that, how you did set up your community relations, because this was a district which didn't have mining, obviously, or a country which really didn't have
Right.
mining. And a lot of the workers there now are local and you train them up. And can you kind of talk about how your relationship with the community has worked, and maybe even if you can tie in how some of the revenue that's been generated by the mine through this regime has helped the community?
Well, yeah, no, that's been one of the keys to our success. We talk about our whole focus is creating shareholder value. And we focus on that through operational excellence, generating cash flow, returning that to shareholders, and also financing growth. But none of that can be done without the strong community ESG platform. And the thing I like to say, Chris, and you've heard me say this, is that ESG was when I first met Adolf Lundin, he was talking about why they and the family invested in natural resources. It was to create wealth for local communities, local people.
Yeah.
Long before ESG was ever talked about, that was core to Adolf Lundin and why he invested in natural resources, and that continues to be part of our culture. It was key to a lot of our success. One of the things we did very early on was we wanted to know what the community was looking for. So we set up what we call roundtables. And first of all, we did a survey of the community. What are the topics that they want to talk about? Obviously, it was jobs, procurement, environment, values. The church was very much involved there, values. And there's a couple other areas that we focused on, infrastructure. And those roundtables started in 2016 and have been held started every 6 weeks, now every 8 weeks, except during COVID where we did have a little bit, but then we started them virtually. And those aren't our roundtables. Those are the community's roundtables. And what we do is we sit and talk about any concerns, any issues. We talk about our results to date. We tell the community what we're doing. And that's how a lot of our projects have come up, where the community said, well, we'd like to look at this. And what's really interesting is that none of that is solely financed by Lundin Gold. Everything is joint, whether it's another government or a community or an NGO is funding things. And we've invested now over 44 million in the local communities and what we consider social over the 10 years now that we've been here. And that's one part, but the key, as I mentioned, one of the things with local hiring originally, we spent 10 million as part of construction to set up a program with the Lundin Foundation, which is another key part of the Lundin Group. And that was to essentially train people that don't, mostly agriculture, subsistence agriculture, and to be mine operators, to be process plant operators. We had a program that started with 285 people. 270 of those people are still working for us.
Wow.
And now some of them are foremen. One of our control room operators, when I was last at site a few weeks ago, was at site. Control room operators from Los Encuentros, the little town nearby, and he's now our control room operator in the plant.
Wow.
And that was we knew we had to invest in that training early on. And now what we did in PCOM, we called it the PCOM. They're looking at it for Vicuña. They're looking at it for Montage and Fireweed. How do we then take this whole? And this is where the foundation comes in, Lundin Foundation, because was the core that kind of helped set this up. Well, that foundation can help any of the Lundin Group companies. So
okay, that's great. So right, so the Lundin Foundation, I wasn't aware of that. So that's like it's funded by the Lundin family, and it's specifically for training individuals and how to build life skill, work skills, and that kind of thing.
not only that, they're a group. Yeah, they're actually funded by the companies. We all fund, and
Okay.
then we also do special projects. But they're helping us with our new 5-year sustainability strategy.
I see.
They have programs for local businesses called Nexo, which started with us and now are being used in Fireweed and Vicuña, which
Okay,
is to help small businesses. It's essentially a training program for small businesses so that they can improve their accounting, improve their business practices, billing,
right.
invoicing, so that they could then supply us with things. They've
Oh,
had
interesting.
one very successful program has been in agriculture,
Right.
where the foundation has helped a lot of, because as I mentioned, Swartz and Chippy was primarily agriculture. Well, all the fruits and vegetables, the eggs, a lot of the meat that we all consume at camp all comes from local suppliers.
Yeah, right. So it's
And
not just it's not just the 285 people working there direct, like who are affected. It's this big, broad, it's that they say there's a multiple effect, right? Of having the
yeah,
mine there. It really does really enhance the economy in lots of ways, and not just for those people there working at the mine, right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah. No, it's great. I mean, I remember, when you mentioned, like, I remember I was once at a mine in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and I was sitting with one of the open pit engineers, and he was talking about how he has a big house down in the southern DRC with a tilapia farm, and he sends his kids to college in the United States, and I mean, it just seemed like it's just a fantastic success story, and there are just tons of those throughout the industry, which people aren't necessarily aware of. I'm sure that there are a whole bunch,
yeah,
like the similar ones, 285, I guess, at Fruta del Norte.
yeah, yeah.
So,
If you look at our employees now, we have 1,700 employees. 50% of them are from the province.
yeah. No, it's fantastic. Okay, great. So great. And so that relationship with the community, it like, I guess we mentioned kind of how we spoke a little bit about how it contributes to your success, but I mean, even in a more concrete way, I guess, is it that the miners are more invested, that they understand that you're there for the community, so they understand that when they're working not just for themselves, but also for the community. Do you think that plays a role in terms of how successful you've been in terms of the operations of the mine? Because you're one of the lowest, if not the lowest cost producers on a unit basis in the gold mining industry.
I think that does help. I think big part of it, Chris, that I've learned, being here is the Ecuadorian culture. They're
Okay.
very proud. They're very proud people, and they want to continue to do better. And that's helped us a lot. Like, you look at, we're one of the lowest cost producers, and our team at site have continued to, because with gold pricing rising, with that royalty I mentioned and profit sharing, our costs actually go up
Yeah.
$10 for every $100 increase in gold price.
Yeah.
But we still, this past year and this year so far, we're still within guidance, even though gold prices are well above what we used as a budget number.
Right. Right.
And that's by people finding ways. There's been a few other things that have helped us. Ecuador is the US dollar.
Okay.
So we use I think it's the only country outside of the United States that uses the US dollar. That
Okay.
means our inflation is much lower than many other mining companies in Latin, like Chile, Peru, Colombia. Uh, our power situation, we're blessed with about 85% hydro, so it's low cost power. We did have an issue last year. Hydro's great, except when you have the worst drought in 60 years. So there was a bit of a power crisis, but we were able to work with the government to get through that and still
Right.
keep our low cost. And Ecuador's got very good highways, the ports, and everything. It's helped us a lot to keep our costs low.
Okay, great. So you're operating this fantastic mine. Again, the costs are below $1,000 an ounce, one of the lowest in the industry, 500,000 ounces, generating free cash flow. You've paid down your debt that you used to build the mine, and now you're paying a very big dividend. So thank you for that also. and you've also been exploring. So just so at the mine site now, you found the Fruta del Norte South, which is another vein system. And you've also found a big potential copper system. Can you talk about what the opportunity is there? And also, like, again, to tie in the community, how does that, does that kind of make the community even more excited about the operation and the mine, given that there is the potential to extend the life and even grow it?
Yeah, no, the exploration program has yielded more fruit than, again, bad pun there, but it's been amazing. Yeah, we really focused our drilling. Yeah, Fruta del Norte South is going to replace and maybe add reserves and continue to add resources. But yeah, Tranquiloma and Sangre, we have two new porphyry targets that the first holes that we hit there were over 800 meters of 0.5% copper equivalent from surface, like not as starting at 200 or 300 from surface.
Yeah.
So zero strip ratio, it's right there. And it was interesting, the VP of exploration for Lundin Mining came to me after that release came out and said, Ron, you realize we've gone through the database at Caserones, which is their mine in Chile. That's better than any hole that was ever drilled at Caserones. And we went, wow, okay, maybe, yeah. So we're focused on that. We'll have some more results coming out here before Q2. As you know, Chris, we like to put out our exploration releases out just before the quarterly. So we keep our shareholders up to date on that, on those programs. But with the success we had in Q1, we increased the program. It was originally going to be 85,000 meters. It's now going to be 108,000 meters. And the reason for that increase is Fruta del Norte South, what we're seeing there. And so we put some more underground rigs, I think, and then I think we got 6 rigs working on that right now underground.
Yeah.
And then Tranquiloma, the holes we've continued to drill there, we've added some more rigs on surface. I think right now we're at about 16 rigs in total, and it's 108,000 meters, which I believe is the largest drill program in LATAM right now. It's what's really pretty interesting, Chris, is that's all focused within. If you put a pin in Fruta and draw a 5-kilometer radius around there, everything's within that.
Yeah. No, it's amazing, right? So, okay, so you have this fantastic community government relations, fantastic operations, fantastic exploration. So fantastic. Well, that all comes with fantastic management and team. And then so the question is, how do you apply this to something else? What are you doing in terms of M&A? Where are you looking? Do you think that you can apply this to something else? Is it really hard to replicate something like this? How are you thinking about M&A?
It is hard because there's, for the same, Fruta is an amazing ore body, and the geological potential is amazing. It's just a great part of the world to work, but that doesn't mean there's not opportunities out there. So we really have 3 key mantras. Just like we have 3 fundamental principles of operations: working safely, environmental stewardship, and respect. We have 3 mantras in M&A: opportunistic, patience, and discipline. And we've looked at a lot of things, but there are opportunities out there. We see some things where we see the opportunity to take what we've learned at Fruta del Norte and apply that in other areas. I want to assure your fund, everyone listening, investors today, though, that we're very cognizant of that. We know we've got something pretty amazing. We're not going to do something just for the sake of hearing or just to. I know people still feel like there's some sort of single country risk here. But we're not going to do that just to address those. We know we've got something great here. And quite frankly, in terms of country, I had meetings with the IMF and the World Bank yesterday, the Canadian Embassy, and some assembly members yesterday. I'm meeting with, right after this, IFC. We're going to lunch with the Vice President. This is the most excited I've been about Ecuador since I started coming here 11 years ago. and the opportunity. So, getting back to M&A, yeah, we look at a lot of things, and that's the thing again about the Lundin Group is we can be opportunistic. If there's something that comes up, we can hit it hard, we can hit it fast.
Right. Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And I was also going to say that we also own, you're also the chairman of Montage Gold, which the fund also owns. And the Lundins, I think, have 20% of, or they're 20% shareholder in that company, I think. And that's another one where I think, you know, where and we know Martino DeCicco, the CEO there, well, because he was at Endeavor before. But yeah, so it seems like, again, you're like, there's the opportunity to apply that, like you can be patient and we can benefit as shareholders because there is this other Lundin company which has good oversight from you and the management, which is also going to hopefully do really well, just like Lundin Gold did. So
I'm very excited, Chris. I saw you say we've added a new person to the board, Jeremy Langford, who also, if you invested in Endeavor, you would have recognized that name. He was the guy who kind of oversaw a lot of the building. So really excited to have Jeremy joining the board. And very excited about opportunities in Montage.
Yeah, no, it's great. Okay, great. All right, well, thanks. That's awesome. I mean, thanks so much. Let's try to open it up to questions from the audience if we have any, and see. I actually have to lean forward because my glasses aren't on. So this is from Dash, and it says, Ron, with your global experience in mining, what made Ecuador stand out as the strategic choice for Lundin Gold over other resource-rich regions like Africa or Central Asia? Given your experience in large-scale gold projects, if an opportunity like Oyu Tolgoi were to arise again in Mongolia, would you consider investing in such a venture?
That's a great question, Dash. And, you know, I think the thing that, you know, you're right, but what drives us is the asset. So that's what really brought us to Ecuador, because actually, and I remember going around with Lucas when we were trying to raise the money to fund the acquisition. Gold, that was late 2014, gold had suffered its largest drop in 24 in a day from London, in the London exchange while we were in London. You know, it was a horrible time, but it was the asset that brought us to Ecuador. And it's the asset that's taken us to right now to Argentina. It was the asset that took us to the DRC. So yeah, if something like Oyu Tolgoi, you know, I've worked in Mongolia. It's challenging. I won't say it's not, but yeah, it's really asset. It's the asset that drives where, in some respects, where we look at. There are certain no-go places. Like Adolf was really big on Russia. We tried Russia. It was challenging, and the stands kind of fit into that game as well. You know, there's certain no-go places, but it's really driven by the asset.
Yeah. No, I mean, one thing that I do like to say about like the asset, which I guess we didn't touch on, but like when I try to describe to people what we look for from an asset perspective, I try to say the 3 Gs. So grade, geometry, and geography. And Fruta del Norte is fantastic from a grade and geometry perspective, first and foremost. And then geography also benefits from the hydropower and things like that. But just right, it's just fantastic, like in terms of the ore body, very high grade, like 10 grams a ton. And then the geometry is fantastic because it's wide and vertical, so pretty easy to mine without getting a lot of dilution, right? Is that right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right, Chris.
Yeah. Okay, great. So another one. So Newmont is your largest shareholder. What do they think of their investment, and how is your interaction with them?
That's a great question as well. Let's just say the relationship with Newmont is a lot better than the rest. They're great shareholders. Tom Palmer, Peter Toth, Tom who's president or was president CEO, now CEO, Natasha, who is now president and COO, and Peter Toth, chief development officer, all came to Fruta in February, and they were very impressed. We have 2 members on our board that are representatives of Newmont, and it's a very good relationship. what they want to do with their stake in Lundin Gold. All I can say is that there's a very good relationship between the Lundin family and Lundin Gold and Newmont, such that if they decide to do anything, they'll work with the family to do it, whether it's an acquisition or continue to hold, or whether they look at reducing their position. It's to say the relationship's really good, and we won't be surprised by anything, which I think is one of the keys for shareholders.
That's great, right? And they own, I think, 32%, and they got that
Correct.
through your acquisition of Newcrest, right? Who helped you finance the construction of the mine, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, got it. All right, cool. Let me see. What are the benefits? Okay, this is a good. What are the benefits or disadvantages potentially of working for a family business? Obviously no disadvantages, but what are the benefits?
Yeah, I'm coming up on 30 years. I'm either just stubborn or no. The Lundins have been a phenomenal family, but they're unique. I know of many others that groups out there. The Lundin family truly are unique, and unfortunately, we lost Lucas too early to glioblastoma, brain cancer. He was a great leader, great mentor, and I with this family, I really don't see any disadvantages.
Yeah,
They're very
no, it does seem great. I mean, and I mean, like, it seems like they're really like, again, I think one thing that we're worried about as shareholders of some companies is that that the management are not as fully invested in the company even as they could be. So and that might skew incentives to a degree, meaning that they don't, they're more like thinking about being in the management to benefit themselves and not necessarily benefit the company. But obviously with the Lundin family taking such big stakes and then incentivizing people appropriately, and it's one and the same, right? So I think that's
one and the
a
same.
really big benefit.
And it's not like they're just sitting off there and then fly in every once in a while. Like Lucas, during construction, Lucas talked to me sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. How are things going? What's going on? And what can we, and, I talk to now Jack and Adam weekly. They're very much involved, but more to support rather than getting involved. And I remember one thing that Adolf told me, and Lucas said the same thing, is, and this is one thing investors sometimes maybe get concerned about, is Lucas said the for sale sign's always in the front yard.
Yeah.
They don't get vested assets, and that's where sometimes I think some families they can get vested in those assets, and they're not necessarily looking at what's the best thing for shareholders.
Yeah,
So
that's great, right? So we've seen that where it's just it's for sale. If you want to put the right price on it, we'll sell it. So that's great. Okay, and a couple of things. So 500,000 ounces per year. There's just clarification there. Over 52 weeks. So somebody said how many ounces per week, but I guess you just do the division there.
We're roughly producing about 1,500, sometimes 2,000 ounces a day.
A day. Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. It's just amazing. So last question is, what's your one piece of advice if you what's your best piece of advice for how to invest in the junior mining industry?
Look at management and look at the asset.
Yeah.
There's I'm not going to say, there's management out there that are very good promoters, and there are management out there that are good, that focus on shareholder value.
Yeah.
And that's really, really what you want to look at. Don't make sure you don't get too caught up in the promotion, and look at really creating shareholder value and the asset.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that's when people ask me, what do we look for? I just say assets, management, and valuation. And so in terms of the stock, right? So exactly, that's it. So
well, a good example, Chris, is look at Montage and Fruta. 10 grams a ton, less than a gram per ton.
Yeah.
But it's in West Africa, and you got a team that's built mines, knows how to operate in that part of the world.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, it's true. And I mean, I guess it's a good point to the valuation also in terms of us, you know, being the portfolio managers, we can say, okay, Lundin's done really well. It's made us lots of money. Maybe we can, you know, trim a little bit of Lundin and use it to buy some Montage, which is trading at a much lower valuation. But it still has a great management and a great asset. So that's just something else to watch for. But that's great. Yeah, I was going to say, so it's fantastic. So thanks so much, Ron. This is really, really great. Thanks so much for your time. Say hi to the vice president for us. We're rooting for Ecuador and the mine. And again, you know, it really is. I think, you know, it's great to end on that concept of assets management and valuation, because you guys really have embodied that for us. So it's been a great ride for us. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you for your kind words, Chris, and thanks for enjoy being able to talk about Fruta del Norte for your investors as well. Thank you for
Great.
your support. You've been a great supporter. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks, Ron. Yeah, I'll see you soon, hopefully.
See you soon.
Okay, bye.